I call it Mr. Orr. Mr. Adams, you read this by prayer and reading.
Yes, sir.
Prayer and pledge, please.
Please join me. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the blessings you bestow upon us, especially your grace and your mercy. We ask that you continue to bless all the students, faculty, and staff, administration here at the County School Board, and ask for your guidance and wisdom in the decisions that we make today. Thank you again for all the blessings you give us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Welcome. County staff. And other visitors. But I forgot about the other visitors. I won't have anything to address the board now, the time to do it. Seeing no addressees. I'd like to call Ms. Hill and Ms. Sheriff up for their presentation.
Thank you. Come on up in front. We do have one error. It's Miss Hill and Miss Bourne today.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse
No,
me.
it's not your fault. We have two Rhondas at NEFA.
I just want to show you I can read.
But good morning. Thank you for having us. My name is Marcia Hill. I'm the Director of Instruction at NEFA. And I have my colleague with me today, Rhonda Bourne, who's Supervisor of Special Projects. We're here today to talk with you about the Teacher Incentive Fund grant, a federal grant. We call it SEEK, Sustainable Educator Evaluation and Compensation. I am the project director for SEEK, and Rhonda's the project manager. There are 9 districts, of which Levy is one, that are part of it in Northeast Florida. We'd like to talk with you about what our goals are. And as we look at this second slide, I would like for you to look from right to left instead of left to right, because really the bigger picture is that we need to have an improved system for educator practice. And of course, we know Florida's been working on that for several years now. We've got some mandates in place that are requiring a more efficient system for educators to be evaluated. So as we continue to improve our system for educator practice, we absolutely have to look at our system for assessing students and using that feedback in order to impact and to evaluate how that looks for teachers. And if we have those two things in place, then we should see improved educator performance. And ultimately, if we see improved educator performance, we're going to see improved student growth, which is the goal for all of us. This is a 5-year grant. We are currently about a little halfway of year 2. Year 1 was a planning year, and year 2 was this fiscal year. We have pilot schools that are part of Chiefland Middle High School, as your school is part of it this year. And year 3, we will have full implementation. And of course, full implementation means all the schools in your district, as well as all the schools in the 8 other districts in our region as well. And then in years 4 and 5, we're going to be focusing on sustaining what's been put in place, sustaining that growth. Levy County has over $2,200,000 set aside that comes directly to your district for this grant. And that comes to you in a couple of different ways. One way is through teacher support colleagues. We have a funded position, teacher support colleague this year, and then that will expand to additional colleagues in this coming school year. Compensation for professional development opportunities, all the stipends and travel are paid for teachers as well as for the colleagues who have attended a great deal of professional development this year. Performance-based compensation, which will be part of this second year for some of the districts, and of course in years 3, 4, and 5. And then dollars to develop local assessments to show that student growth is occurring in those hard-to-measure courses. And I know we'll probably talk about that a little bit more when we have sort of the informal question and answer time. time. What has funding already provided? We've done a lot of PD with your pilot school. We had some in the summer, some in November. We did some early this year for writing training for teachers. And then, of course, we've had the ongoing professional learning and networking opportunities for those teacher support colleagues and principals. If you think back to the old Florida Reading Initiative days, for some of you who may have been around back then, we kind of used what we learned from that model as we pull these lead teachers together and have them participating in lesson study activities, but mostly engaging them with the skills so that they can go back to the school and share that with teachers. And then principal cadre meetings as well. I skipped the steering committee. Let me see. Steering committee. Patrick and Barb are part of our steering committee. They come to all the meetings. Those are some pretty active meetings, I would say. We address the tough issues. We talk a lot about all the things facing us, not only through the things that we have to accomplish in this grant, but really it becomes about all the things that are happening in Florida and what we need to accomplish as a result of a lot of the legislative mandates. So a few months back, we got our year one summative report, and it told us the things that we were doing well, and it told us some of the things that we needed to work on. The first one is emphasis on district communication through district steering committee and written communication plan. As I said, we established a regional steering committee and we developed a regional communication plan. But now that we're through with year one, and especially as we're getting ready to gear up for full implementation next year, we need to focus those steering committee efforts within the district and come up with a tight communication plan for each of the districts involved. Improve measurement and tracking strategies. Rhonda would probably talk all day about the things that we've discovered about how data is being tracked and looked at in the various districts. And we have a lot of issues, maybe not so much perhaps as some of the others. But as an overall for this project, there's a lot of issues with really being able to get the data in the hands of teachers and then know what to do with it once we have it. Professional development, we're happy to say, has actually been one of the very positive things about the grant in terms of the feedback that we've gotten. What they'd like to see as we move forward is that the professional development be designed to build capacity. So again, as we hire those additional colleagues in the coming year, we want to make sure that those are the right people who have the relationships with the teachers in their schools and can go back and support them as a colleague. Increase support for principals and inter-rater reliability and coaching. That's something that came out in the evaluation in terms of we've done a lot with the awareness part of the evaluation, but we really need to make sure that we're getting that inter-rater reliability, not only from classroom to classroom, but from school to school. And so we're going to be working a lot with principals in the coming years with that, as well as coaching. And then enhanced transparency for the evaluation process. I think this is a huge one as we move forward. You know, a lot of teachers, everybody knows there's a new evaluation process, but nobody really necessarily understands VAM, or we have a cursory understanding of that, or maybe really not even an intimate understanding of the observation side of the evaluation. So it's going to be very important to us that we focus on making that transparency at the teacher level. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Rhonda to share a few things.
And our teacher support colleagues are a requirement of the grant to have career ladder positions. And for us, it was such a natural fit with some of the other things that we've already been doing, and for the coaches that you already have in place in a lot of schools. So having a teacher support colleague as that career ladder position gives teachers who have a history of highly effective and effective evaluations, especially as measured by student data, gives them a chance to have a leadership position in their school and in their district without necessarily going toward an administrative position, which some of them don't want to do. They still want to be with kids. They want to be with teachers. So a lot of our work for the past year and a half, 2 years, has been around helping them to develop the coaching and mentoring skills that they need to support teachers. And you will be going from the pilot school and the one TSC to many more next year. So we have our work cut out for us over the summer in coaching up the new crop of TSCs using the ones that are doing such an amazing job right now. And these are some of the quotes that we got from teachers over the summer, not even particularly asking them about TSCs, just the things that we heard them say. And I think when you look at the amount of words that are about change in practice and change in culture, those are the things that are important to us. And they bleed over into a larger framework that we have started working with and will continue to work with. We find that looking at a human capital management system gives us a framework from which to operate for each district. Each district has all these things in place, but there are two varying degrees of effectiveness and efficiency and alignment. When you look at the way districts go out and get teachers, how they advertise, how they hire, how they do their beginning teacher programs, how they do professional development, how they mentor teachers, how do you attract teachers with pay and then keep them with pay, and how do you manage all of that? That's a really, really, really huge undertaking. So this grant has given us the luxury almost of being able to step back and say, let's examine those things. How well do all those parts and pieces align in each district to what your district thinks is important as far as a culture, as expectations for teachers? If you could create the ideal teacher and list all the things that you would want them to have, how well do all those pieces line up to get you that teacher and keep you that teacher?
What's TSC stand for?
Teacher support colleague. I'm so sorry. And, you know, it's education, so we have to have an acronym for everything. And the last thing from us before we answer any questions that you might have is just we're asking for your support. Nothing this big or this important gets implemented without support from leadership, and that's you guys. What questions do you have for us?
The anticipated hope for overall outcome is that what through better evaluation process, this includes administrators and teachers as part of this evaluation process, okay, will make for better decisions in the classroom to the students, and also giving more data for Rhonda to disseminate for us. Okay.
And I think it's really important to understand that with two tiny exceptions, this grant doesn't put more on you. It gives you resources to do what's legislatively mandated in Florida anyway. So we saw that as a win. Yes, there are some things, some little hoops that have to be jumped through that are not always fantastic. But the millions and millions of dollars we're able to pour into districts to do some of the things that you'd have to do anyway without that money.
Rhonda, would you touch on some of the challenges that we have as a district to work through?
Absolutely. Legislatively, statutorily, you have to, in 2014-15, have an end-of-course assessment for every course that you have in your district. And that can come in lots of different forms. It can be an industry certification exam, it can be a standardized exam, it can be an AP or IB exam, or it can be a district-adopted assessment, which means it can be something that you purchase, something that you create, something that you collaborate with other districts on. But as I understand it, you have about 260 courses. That's huge. And you're not alone in that. Lots of districts are facing the same challenge. We're working over the summer collaboratively with districts to get as many of those done as we can. We bought item banks that you can pull items from. But There's also the two pieces that the state has been in charge of, and that one is called CFAC, and one is called the Item Bank and Test Platform. And they've been pouring lots of money into item writing and development in those two pieces. And they were originally supposed to roll out in, I want to say May, and that got pushed to June, and now we're hearing maybe July. So some of the resources that we expected to have available to districts are not going to meet their timelines, which makes you meeting your timelines a real challenge.
Then what is our timeline?
Well, that's a good question. As I understand it, you have to in the first 6 weeks, and every district is different. That's a challenge for us, is that we have 9 districts in this grant. That means 9 school boards, 9 superintendents, 9 teachers' unions, 9 district offices, and frankly, 9 different district cultures that,
According to our contract, we have to tell teachers how they're going to be evaluated in the first 6 weeks of school. If you don't have their complete evaluation tool, in the course exam ready, how are you going to present that to them? That's one of the challenges that we face is, and like Rhonda said, the state has not released their item bank. CPAC has put theirs off. We have through DFAC negotiated with Hillsborough County, and we have been able to purchase those, but they still have to be formatted and printed and all of that, which again runs up a bill, and is time consuming for us to even put together 260 tests if we had 260 tests to put together.
So, and this may sound like an absolute crazy question, completely off topic. But with us having to produce all that and purchase all that, we are a very tight budgeted operation here. How are we able to afford to do that? That's one question. Another question is, where do y'all come in on helping us with these assessments specifically? Not pie in the sky, oh, we do paint, don't paint me a pretty picture. Tell me the honest, cut down picture, because I'm that guy. I gotta have it that way because I don't understand the other stuff. And then what the state has kind of put the cart ahead of the horse on us is not helping, but what can we count on y'all to do to get that state support in? And then I have more questions.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I'll start.
Go right ahead.
So as Rhonda explained, we have the state assessments that now, of course, that timeline has changed. That covered a wide variety of courses. But there's always, then you go down to the next layer. Then we got involved with CFAC, the Central Florida Assessment Consortium. That was a very inexpensive venture because as a whole, NEFAC districts came together, and NEFAC has been able to kind of more or less get that work done for you in some cases. But I know that also, Patrick, I think you've had people involved in that from the beginning. It's been more man hours than money at this point, I think. Would you
Well,
agree with that?
CFAC isn't really close right now to providing the item bank, because the item writers are just now creating items, and so we really don't know, the 50 districts involved in CFAC, we really don't know what we're going to get.
And the item writers continue to change.
But in my world, on what you just said, in my world, man hours are money.
Right,
Somebody's getting paid.
right.
So money's coming from somewhere, and how is this working? I'm being honest and genuine. I'm the guy that looks at these grants and goes, okay, we're gonna get $2 million over how many years?
5 years.
Over 5 years. What's that costing us? Sometimes it costs you to get the grant. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And these are the things I'm trying to get around to get an answer.
Right.
And then these assessments, we had to have these assessments, 260 assessments. That's just, ugh. And then when you say, with the state doing that, it's gonna make it difficult. No, that's made it impossible.
Mhm.
Let's face facts, that's made it impossible. So I'm basically saying, I'm looking for help. I'm really looking for free help. You know, if you want to get right down to it, I'm that guy. So there you go, I'm sorry.
So no, you're good. The Hillsborough items were purchased, almost the bulk of them by grant funds for your district. So that's that
90,000 items.
Right.
That's why I like to hear it.
The work has already begun with developing. It actually began last fall. And we looked at, across the region, what were the tests that were impacted the most students and that we needed first in terms of being able to meet some timelines. So we started with those, and as Rhonda said, that work continues through the summer, and we're going to continue throughout the year next year. We're not going to get there. We're not, because it's just not humanly possible.
But we're gonna try as much as we can to get as far as we can with what we have. And in terms of the money, you'd have to do this anyway. You'd also have to implement performance-based compensation next year anyway. This gives you funds to do that without taking your general funds.
The one difference is the
growth
growth,
measure.
you could explain the growth measure that would not have to be applied to our teachers.
And I'm gonna say that originally it would have been.
It would have been, but 1664 in legislation changed that, so through the C grant, we have to show growth, classroom level growth for every teacher. So in addition to creating the assessment, we have to come up with a formula to show that the students make growth. So that's a challenge for all of us, especially with kindergarten, first grade. Some specific subjects are harder to show a relationship between a previous assessment like FCAT to the content like world history, sixth grade world history. You could look at reading standards and say that world history requires reading, but it's a challenge with some courses to show that relationship.
Okay. And now my last question, y'all, on these TSCs, what happens when the grant runs out to that position? Do we then have employees we're paying out of our general fund, or does that just go away?
That would definitely be your decision. We are hopeful that they are making such a difference in your schools that you think it's important to fund them.
Okay. Good enough. That's all I got. Thank you.
My probably is included either with Dr. Wadek or possibly the superintendent, but how is this impacting at this time our performance pay an initiative throughout the state? Are you expecting any relief from the state legislators and all on this for next year? What's going to happen, since I've heard both Marcia and Rhonda indicate we're not going to be ready with these 261
I think,
course assessments. What we need to be, looking at as a board, working with our district and you.
well, when the legislature passes the bills and the governor signs it in law, that's law.
Yes.
And we need to try to the best of our ability to meet the letter of the law. If we are not there completely, is certainly we need to give our best effort to be there. And that's what we're doing, that's what they're doing. I don't think that legislation will change this year in time for next year, but I don't care if you're Miami-Dade or Duval or Mayo, Lafayette, Gilchrist, Dixie, Levy, we're all in this boat. And, well, we got a total of about 440 tests total, one form or another, 260 that we are these outlying hard, difficult tests to do. Miami-Dade may have 4,000, they got more people, they got more challenges, so we're all, none of us are there. And, but we will certainly do the best we can. The reason I signed up for the TIF grant is because, just like they were saying, we have to do it anyway. And so I was trying to get us some money to be able to do performance pay and to get the professional development that would help get us there. And so while all that's been a plus, it's been still nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking for our staff and for Rhonda and Martin. It's because we're fighting a buzzsaw in both. That's where we're at in education.
But in addition to that fact that our union is so easy to get along with, there'll be understanding of this plight.
We have never had the union sign an MOU. And so well, we had to have an MOU for this. We have worked on one. We worked on it yesterday, and we provided Mr. Delaney with a copy of it. I sincerely doubt they will sign, but they didn't sign for Race to the Top either of this, so we will sign, you will sign. And, you know, we're gonna try the best we can to meet the letter of the law. And then wherever we end up, that's where we end up. There's lawsuits out there already, for BAM, and, you know, that should have an effect. We need a judge to tell us, whether the superintendent needs to have his salary cut to 0 for a year, or whether we can continue on to the best of our ability.
Thank you.
On our assessments on this 260, what grade level does that go to? Is that
All the
seventh?
way in K-12.
So it's K-12, so, okay.
There's a course in our course code directory, which we're now calling our Levy course code directory. We've consolidated all of our courses. Then we have to have an assessment.
So so third grade, all right,
Yes.
explain to me how that would work with a third grader. So,
Third grade, if a PE teacher has third graders as well, then there would be a third grade PE class assessment. In addition to your reading assessment, which is already developed by the state. You'd
so
have
we're
your-
talking about like, we're thinking
Any
drum
subject,
group or,
art's
running
taught in
straight
third grade, you have to have
line or
an
what?
art assessment.
so like on paper, a PE test?
It could be a combination of different metrics, but
That's
there would be some sort of an assessment that has a measurable.
Well, that third grade teacher gets the FCAT. I mean, we'll have an FCAT score for her for this year. Next year, we have an air test.
Right.
That's right, and that's another.
How do you measure growth between the FCAT 2 and the air test?
You can't.
It's gonna be,
That's another challenge that we're looking at. And then the state has a student growth committee. And I think the chairperson is in the room. So
that would be Ron.
our state level chairperson is going to have firsthand information on where we are with the bridge between 2.0 and AIR.
My next question is on those TSC people. Is that possibly a stepping stone to being put into administrative pool, like?
Not
progression?
necessarily.
No? Okay.
We have one right now, which is Michelle,
Right.
and she does have the credentials. She doesn't have the desire to be in administrative pool right now. The other people we're looking at do not have that certification, but they're well respected, good people
Right.
that the teachers respect.
I have a couple questions. I know life's not fair, okay? But how about these teachers? I know you said you had to start somewhere. How about these other teachers that are not quote unquote as important as what you picked as being important? What's going to happen to them?
I'm not sure I understand.
You said you had to start somewhere, you know, the course.
Oh, in terms of the
Yeah,
number
yeah.
of students that were impacted because of the number of students in that course. Those
Right,
are chosen
is
first.
that, I mean, is that like, obviously language art would be, you know, in my opinion, the main one, because everybody has to take that 4 years of it. So, well, my question is, what happens to these other people? Not language art people, like PE teachers,
Mhm.
or ag teachers,
And that's
or
really.
band teachers, or guidance counselors.
We can stop with A.
Thank you.
Okay.
But that's the issue at hand. You know, the ones that impact the most students we started with first, that's the way the state did it.
And I understand that
It
part.
was all, think of it like a funnel.
Yes, ma'am.
The ones that impacted the most students for, you know, what the course code directory said they started with, then CFAC bit off a chunk, now we're biting off a piece, and then you're still gonna have that little point at the bottom.
What happened to those other people?
We've got to just keep plowing away at the development on that. You know, ultimately, we would want a valid and reliable assessment that maybe was used across the state or even perhaps across the region, across NEFAC districts. It may be that there is a teacher-made test that's actually used for this first year. that's, might be the best we can do. That's not maybe fair in the big picture, because now that teacher is getting to use their teacher-made test, and I'm using, you know, a standardized test. So that brings up a whole nother set of issues. But, you know, I think there's these things that we can continue to look at and work through to try to make that happen.
I think it's an excellent question. It really is. You know, when you talk about prioritization, how do you prioritize which assessments when this legislation, which Mr. Asbell pointed out, they put the cart before the horse. They're saying we have to have an assessment for every single teacher, but they're not delivering on their item bank. And then we start talking about prioritizing which assessments are going to meet the needs of most students. That really, the legislation says we have to have an assessment for every teacher, for every course. So somewhere along the line here, as we get closer to the beginning of the school year and in the middle of next year, maybe there will be some last-minute legislation that gives us a reprieve, but as of now, we're moving forward as if we have to develop. We've identified the courses, and we're going to try to bring those people together best we can to develop the assessments, work with EFAC and CFAC.
It looks like a dictatorship, as far as I'm concerned. They hold your feet to the fire, but their feet don't have to be held to the fire, and that's not right. I mean, I'm sorry, I mean, that is no way on earth that's right.
And it's a bad outcome, because the legislature came up with this knee-jerk reaction to say, well, we're gonna make it apply to every single teacher in the state, every single course, because what was going on before is that you were doing the group model where all the teachers, if you're a guidance counselor, a PE teacher, whatever, you just take the score for your school. And the teachers challenged that and said, rightly, you know, that's not fair to us. I'm being evaluated on kids I don't teach and subjects that I don't teach. The legislature just swung the pendulum all the way the other way and said, okay, we'll make sure every teacher gets evaluated on what they do, but with no real thought about how to make that happen. And that's what the VAM lawsuit's about.
My other question is, or comment would be, could some of this be used to, say we had a leadership pool, okay, and say, could some of this be used to train these people to become leaders?
Absolutely.
Now, understand what I mean, I'm not talking about.
Aspiring leaders.
Right, exactly right, you know, give us some idea of what's expected of them, that's what I'm looking for right there, thank you.
Right.
You know, what's expected of them,
We actually have a whole program that does that.
okay?
Right, and this feeds into it. So for example, if a teacher support colleague did get into it and decide, wow, I really kind of like this school administration feel, we have a program that we're developing that will take them through some additional courses to even see if they want to go on and get their master's in educational leadership or
You
something
know,
like that.
they might find that they don't think they're not near as good as they thought they were before they got it.
Right, and don't you want to know that before they get in?
You bet. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Koba, I got one more question. Going back to like elementary. So an elementary teacher is teaching, English, math, science. They're gonna have an EOC for each one of those in that?
According to the legislation, we're supposed to have an assessment for each of those courses. For each of those course codes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out one thing. This is federal dollars, and we're all agreeing that we are not going to be in compliance with the requirements of the grant. It's not general dollars, it's federal dollars.
Actually, can I address that?
Yeah, please.
You won't be in compliance with the state. That's different than being in compliance
I
with
don't
the.
think we're going to be in compliance with what's written in your grant. What you say we're going to do, well, there's no way we can do it at this point.
So there's two parts to that.
Okay?
One is that we are crafting a request to the federal government about implementation timelines being unrealistic, and
Okay.
we're hearing.
Now, it sounds like some of that.
I'm not going to promise you anything, but I'm certainly going to go to bat for
I
you.
mean, it's like we're all agreeing that we can't do it, but we're gonna sign up for this money. And
Well-
when you can't make it, and you don't meet it, and you're not in compliance, they tend to ask for the money back.
The compliance issue
That's
with
my
the feds is about using the money to pay performance-based compensation and what metrics you're using for that. It's not about an EOC for every course.
Right.
Having an EOC for every course will help you with that,
Yeah,
But there's other ways to get to the growth measure that's required by the grant that would not necessarily require an EOC. You could go into that if you wanted.
Briefly, I'll try to be brief. We could get there with a growth model, but would it be reliable and valid?
Dependable.
And then when the teacher doesn't get the evaluation that they think they should have, then there'll be lawsuits about you were evaluating me on a test that was not reliable nor valid. And we don't have the time or money to send it to Utah and pay them $5.3 million to do a validity test on it.
There's so much like us out there, so.
Evidently. But anyway, that's the other part. Can we get there? We could get there with a growth model, but would it stand the test of time? No.
And last thing, what does SEEK stand for?
Go ahead. Sustainable Educator Evaluation and Compensation.
And that's the same thing as TIF.
Right.
It's funded through the teacher incentive fund.
So did all that answer your question? You feel better about that?
I'm just saying it's a caution. To me, it's a caution.
Well, I tend to listen to you.
It's federal dollars, and it just makes me nervous. Because those guys, they'll reach back and get it back.
Yeah, you might be the social security man I talked to one day, Mr. Philpott, we'll get our money.
They will get it. So, it's just a caution.
And they tend to open other doors.
Yeah.
And they do, don't they?
Yes, they do.
IRS does have this root bug, by the way.
I'm just telling you, I mean, that's what the man told me, I just spoke out, social security man. Any other questions or comments?
Thank y'all.
Thank you, ladies, very much.
All right, thank you
That
for
was
having
very
us.
helpful. Thank you very much.
Ms. Pam, is there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Just ones you don't even ask.
Ms. Deb, do you have any questions about the minutes?
On the amended minutes of March the 4th, what was changed?
What was the amendment?
On page 2, the second page, where it said minutes, I had put that it was the minutes of March 4th, but that's the actual minutes that we were looking at. It should have been February 18, 2014.
Okay.
Look on page 2.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to be sure.
That was the only thing, and our auditor found that. He came to me and said, "Is this wrong?" And I said, "Oh, it is." So that's why we moved it.
Thank you, Ms. Hazel. Ms. Cowell?
Yes, sir, I'm good.
Thank you, Ms. Cowell. Ms. Brooks?
On the minutes, no.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Ms. Carter?
Yes, ma'am.
I have no questions. Is I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Consent agenda.
Have a change here.
All right, we have a change.
On page 1, under general items number 1A, number 6, convert the 10-month lab manager position. The effective date will be June 10th, 2014, not June 1st.
Okay, any other?
No, sir.
Mr. Hazel?
On the consent agenda, on those items, 1A6 and 1A7, the lab manager position, I can see that, but going from an administrative assistant position to an assistant principal position, could you elaborate on that a little bit? And also, what is that going to do as far as salary?
It will increase salary, not dramatically, but basically it will increase it because you're increasing the time from the 10-month to the 12-month. But the reason I am asking you for that change is that Chiefland Elementary has 60 classroom teachers, and with the Danielson model of the evaluation system, you're talking 3 to 4 hours per teacher to do an evaluation, and then when you have those that need 2 evaluations, formal evaluations a year, which is quite a number at Chief Linnell. There's just not enough time to do all the walkthroughs and documentation and pre-conference and post-conference and the evaluation for 2 people. And, so having that many faculty members, I just think you need to have another AP that can do those evaluations.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Calvin?
On that position, will it be opened up and advertised, or?
We will.
Thank you, Mr. Calvin. Ms. Brogan?
And on that position, they're changing, is that comparable to other schools? Do they have, is that the same amount with the other schools they're having?
We tried, and we have looked at that, well, Chief of Middle High School, you have a principal and 2 APs and a dean, and you have 5 or 6 less faculty there, so you even have one more position there, but you need it at high school because you got so many other requirements with athletics and clubs and so forth. But they have few less teachers and have the 2 APs there. When we combine the Wilson Middle High School, you will have that many, and you will certainly need 2 APs and a principal to perform that. Right now, they're split apart and they're okay. But Chief and Elementary is our largest school in the district with close to 900 students, and so it's the largest school by 300 students, which requires 4 faculty.
Mr. Hastings, can I also add that with the SEEK grant, one of the requirements is that the teachers that opt in to the SEEK performance pay would have to be observed formally 2 times.
Right. More evaluations coming.
Thank you. Let me see. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Brogan. Mr. Sherman?
Attachment number 2 regarding the dual enrollment articulated agreement. A couple of questions on the first page there. We'll reimburse the college for the instructional materials. That comes out of our instructional materials budget in addition to the regular, our high school and other classes budget, correct?
Well, of course, we're spending more money than what we're allocated anyway, but it'll come out of the general funds and,
Students will not have to pay.
no, sir.
And also on page 2, number 6, students scoring 262 or higher on the 10th grade FCAT, eligible to take NC 1101. That's replacing a CPT and ACT score for eligibility.
They're still going to need to take the PERT. If it's a senior that's moving on, Mr. Turner, they have removed the requirement for developmental courses. They'll receive advisement. These students are supposed to have access to those courses, but they will still take the PERT assessment.
But I guess if they, in 10th grade, they scored 262 reading, but then those scores will not have any impact on that.
The way I understand it, talking with Shelley Banfield from the Data Center and with the articulation agreement with CF, that they will still take the PERT and still have a cut score with the PERT.
Okay, so in addition to 262 or higher, they also have to have the PERT score?
That's my understanding at those colleges, but I will look into that to be sure.
Sir?
You think y'all say that?
I'm trying to see if you're in the 10th grade, you don't normally take the PERT until 11th, correct? When you take
10th graders that are wanting to do enroll in 11th grade will take the PERT in 10th grade.
Okay.
And we
Double jeopardy as far as I'm concerned, you either, if you score on the PERT, you're okay, or if you score 262 on the reading, you're okay.
I'll get confirmation on that.
Okay. That was all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Only have one question. It comes back to this, page 1, item 17, or 6, excuse me. What's the difference between a lab manager and a data entry clerk?
We have been paying the data entry clerk, a lot of summer hours to run summer programs, FCAP prep and so forth at Hilltop School. And, she does a lot of inputting of all the students from all the different schools that may come there. So we've been using her extensively through the summer anyway. It's just trying to be fair to her. It's no pay grade increase, but it does put her on the 12-month contract versus the 10 with extra hours.
So what's gonna happen to the lab manager position?
It'll go away.
So we don't really need that anymore?
Well, I mean, she will still have all the same responsibilities that she's always had.
So where it would be considered maybe another different title?
Yes, sir. It's a different title in order to give her the hours, yes, sir, that she needs in the summer to run the summer program.
Okay.
But she will still enter all the data, which she
Right.
does now in the summertime for extra hours.
And also manage the lab during non-summer time, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you all. I think it's time for the superintendent.
Y'all take one of these and pass it down.
Let's start.
The board has already received, when the graduations are, and we want to make sure that you had the baccalaureate, schedule 2 for the 4 high schools, and, so that you can make plans to attend those if you so desire. We will also, give for you the, FFA banquets, because that seems to be the most well attended, and, we'll get those out to you. But other than that, I encourage you to stay in touch with your schools in your domain to find out other ones that you may want to attend, or functions you may want to be at, or retirements you may want to attend, and, so that we can show our support for our schools. We have been working on grading practices, trying to get some consistency with how we grade in this county. And the questionnaire will go out this week, I believe, to teachers, parents, students, administrators, so that we will have some input from all the factors that want to have input into the way that we conduct our grading practices. As we get into more testing and more requirements, then it seems that the grading practices have taken on a kind of an animal of their own. And so we're trying to be fair to the students and be fair to the teachers and administrators, and get some consensus on how we should be handling that. If you've got any questions, you can ask Mr. Edison.
Well, I have a lot of comments that I hear all the time about the Skyward, and some teachers, they don't put it in all day, and some schools they require it, some they don't. And I really, really get a lot of comments about that, and I think I've asked that before, and it's not consistent, from elementary to middle to high. I really would like to see some consistency so that we can answer these questions and just say, yes, I mean, it's a wonderful program, they're doing it, the parents need to be able to access it, but then, we just get a lot of feedback saying that, well, they're not putting it in. Well, this school requires this teacher to do it every day, and some do, but it's just not across the board at all.
The best solution to that is if you would tell that parent to call the principal and put the pressure on the principal to require. Because those parent portals are important, and the ability for that parent to keep up with what's happening with their child, we want to see.
Right.
But when you have 360 teachers, 380, however many we have, you're gonna have some that are more in tune and some that, but that principal is the one that can keep the pressure on that teacher to do it as they should be doing it. Because, you know, I don't, Mr. Turner's been in administration, he knows that when you get in, teachers, even the plan books back in the old days, some of them are up to speed and some of them are not, and, you know, and I'm talking about, you can have a good teacher that doesn't take care of those details like that. And so, but it's still important that parents, be well informed and, but we can lay down the law just like the principal does, but if that parent keeps the pressure on that principal, the principal will keep the pressure.
Those are questions that we're trying to find the answers to, as to what's reasonable, because you'll have, I'm sitting on the parent committee, and so does Candy Dean, and I know Barb's in there, and Patrick as well. And but one of the things we have some parents that will want that thing updated hourly.
Not
Okay.
never ask anybody that.
And then there's others that don't check it at all.
Yeah.
So, and the question is, where's the need?
We do have parents that check it as regular as they check their Facebook page. And,
Have mercy.
that's what I'm talking about.
Some are on committee.
Yes.
Yeah, one just submitted Skyward Stalker, she admitted it.
So getting a balance that's fair, maybe,
Right.
but we certainly do want parents to be informed to a reasonable degree.
And we want the grades and things posted reasonable too.
Yes.
Hourly is a little much.
We understand that, and we're certainly working to find out how to do those things better. Also want to mention that this week, we have softball teams that will be doing their sub-regional contest, and baseball will be going into districts this week, and I believe all three out of 4 of our baseball teams will be participating, no, all 4 will be participating in this. And so, you know, we have, they're seeded 1 or 2 is what I was thinking, but anyway, it's a good time of the year, and
Indians play the Devil tonight.
Indians play the Devils tonight. And, that should be a good game, so, anyway.
Yeah. This is a whole new season, man.
I'm talking about looking at pins. And I ain't gonna lie, I'm the furthest away.
You started to bother you?
Yes.
Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
As far as our special facilities, is Bedford attending all of the conference meetings and getting, I know not a whole lot went on yesterday, so.
Well, it started last night at 8 o'clock.
Right, I know.
And the conference committee, so, but, yeah, he's, the House took a long time to get out their list of who was on the Education Appropriation Committees, but they finally published it, and he's trying to make contacts with all the senators in the House. Another thing I don't understand, the Senate side, they nominated 8 people to be on that committee. The House nominated 15 or 16, but still the big chair is the one that you want
Let's
to.
hope the House had swings them over that, so.
Right. And we had, our biggest ally on that is Dennis Baxley, and so that's on that committee.
Right.
And so, you know, hopefully everything will continue to work smoothly. One other thing I want to mention to you is that we have a conflict between our board meeting and the Wilson High School graduation on June the 3rd. Both of them are in the evening, and so we can go a couple of routes. We can move the evening board meeting to like 5 o'clock. I think that it's 7 or 7:30 for the
I believe
graduation.
it's 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Be a little pressed for time, especially if you want to have supper, or we can, swap them and do a morning days, or
What did we do last year?
In the past, did we cancel that, or what did we do?
no, it just never worked out to be on the same date, before.
I thought we did have a
Well,
conflict.
actually,
We did have a conflict, yeah, we did.
My preference would be to swap them.
Just flip morning and night meetings.
Okay, I threw that out this time, and we'll put that on the agenda to make it official next time, okay? Anybody have any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. About our attorney, do you have a word for us?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Asman?
All I have, two things are both complimentary. The first one, I want to publicly thank Miss Becky Tyson. She helped a family here recently that was seeking some medical help for their child. And to qualify for a much better rate, she was hopped on it in 5 seconds, sent a letter, the standard letter saying all our kids are on free and reduced lunch, and that saved that family tremendous money. And she didn't have to do that, but she did that. And I think that's very, very indicative of the people we have that work here. I thought that was, she did not have to do that. She went out of her way, and just impressed. The other thing that impressed me, as most of us know, whenever the FCAT is, especially in elementary schools, they're trying to do something to inspire the kids, get the kids motivated about it. Some schools do the same old thing. I also want to compliment Chiefland Elementary School. If you have not seen the Thriller video thing that they did, that's a great imagination, a little bit of thinking outside the box, and that's fantastic that they would do that. Now, that being said, they did not sing it like Michael Jackson. They were more like a church choir, but that's okay. It was the thought that counted, and you could tell they put a lot of thought and effort into that thing, and I was impressed with it, and please tell them I was. I thought it was great.
We got one teacher that rewrites, she rewrote the musical last year, and she rewrote the words to the Thriller this year to be FCAT accommodating, Betsy Clark, and she's new to us. Last year was her first year, and she's doing a fantastic.
I think it'd be great if you could get them to come in and perform it for us.
Those are a bunch of sick women.
They are.
But it was good. Mr. Bill Funk, I forgot one thing.
Okay, sir.
We had a break-in last week at Bronson Elementary, last weekend, about 7 o'clock in the evening, and they stole all the copper. They hit 2 of the air conditioning units, but they also got the cafeteria and stole the copper that keeps our refrigeration and our freezer units running. And about 2 months ago, you remember, y'all okay to buy an alarm system for our coolers. That one deal saved us thousands of dollars because we just got a Tyson food delivery, and it alerted Ms. Tyson and Ron immediately that something was wrong, and we were able to discover it. So we didn't wait till Monday morning when all that food had been thawed out and destroyed. We got to move it that evening. Had a good crew, Mickey Beecham from the outside help, Gerald, Steve Tyson, different ones, and got all the food moved, saving us thousands of dollars. So the system that y'all purchased a couple months ago has paid off.
Fantastic. On that, and I haven't talked to Mr. Alexander about this at all, but when you drive by Bronson Elementary School at night, it's pitch black. Bronson High School is lit up like an airport, but it's pitch black in there. It's not that I'm a criminal, but it's a fine spot if you want to break into something, because a bunch of the lights are out. The taller lights, and I don't think we would have to rent something to get up tall enough, would we? To change
Maybe
it?
not after today.
Okay, all right.
We have a new piece of equipment that's coming, we think will help us replace lights.
And him bringing that up just made me think of that, because there's not many on and.
But if I can have a second to make a point about that.
Sure.
I think for a nominal fee, and maybe Joe's not here, maybe Joe could give us an idea what it would cost. I think it would be nice to put a camera on that particular set of units. That's not the first time that's happened. and it's not the first time in Bronson that we've had this problem. But those are very vulnerable, and they cost a lot of man hours had to go into doing it. It's all back up and running and going again, but it would be nice to get a picture of the perpetrator so that we could at least let him know we know he's doing it.
Get a picture in the paper.
There you go.
I'd be glad if I knew who it was and tell him, look, I'll give you $100, just for a copper.
Helicopter would be worth more than all of them.
And they're still about $100 worth of copper and costing us thousands.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Ms. Athens?
Oh, I'm done.
Mr. Carroll?
First thing is Cycle for Ed was this weekend, so thank you to everybody that participated. So whether you were a sponsor, you came in the road, or you were a volunteer at one of the stops or at the registration table. So, and I'm just happy that we were able to continue that. So, and thankful that Ms. Page started that. So, but it went off without any major hitches, and so just appreciate that. Also had Arts Festival the weekend before, so Mr. Jeff came down and flipped burgers with us, so we just appreciate everybody that came down and supported, because that's a really big deal to the school clubs and kind of how they make their funds to kind of go through the year. And on that note, last night Cedar Key FFA had a garden expo, and they're selling geraniums. So if you need some geraniums for your yard, or garden, get with me and I can get you some geraniums at $5 a piece. And next, in 2 weeks, we have our Cedar Key Aquaculture team will be going down to compete in state, and I'll be going down there with them.
Good luck.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Ms. Brothers?
Just for Bronson break-ins, and I was just talking to someone from the sheriff's department not too long ago. How about the cost of all that? Well, I mean, have we acquired a lot of costs from all those break-ins?
Well, we have insurance. but-
Oh, have we?
Yes, ma'am. But it does add up.
Yeah.
So, but we do have insurance coverage.
And so the cameras would certainly help, and,
Would we get a reduction on the premium if we had cameras?
Maybe some, I don't know.
Would it be enough?
$1,000 deductible per occurrence.
Probably not enough to pay for the camera, but
Over a period of time?
but if, just stopping it, the man hour fight Ted was talking about, when it takes 10 people, 20 hours, they're, like Ms. Asbell said earlier, time is money. And that's something that we could have been getting other classrooms ready instead of repairing.
Well, I can say this, and I guess it was a sign of my house to break in here, okay? So that happened like, 3 or 4 times in 2 or 3 years. But since I put cameras up, I haven't had any problem when I break it in my house.
I think that just the deterrent is a big factor, yes, sir.
I don't know what that would cost, that might be something we want to look into.
Believe me, the new school in Wilson will have a bunch
Do
of.
we have any criminals over there? I was talking about the old house getting broken. They just passing through. They already live there. Where's the live? They already live there.
To me, the camera, the camera is an intangible statement.
Invite him to the crab fest this week.
oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Criminals.
Also, I just wanted to let everybody know that the Chiefland Middle School baseball team were SMAC champions, and we're real proud of that in Chiefland, so that's great. And that this weekend is the FFA Alumni Rodeo. If you can attend, it's Friday night and Saturday night, so that's going on for FFA. And then also, the Chiefland Watermelon Festival is June the 7th this year, and in the past, it's been a conflict with Cedar Key graduation. So we never have, as a board, ever participated or been in the Chiefland Watermelon Festival. We've been in Cedar Key, we've been in Williston, we've never been in the Chiefland. So I would like to ask y'all if you would please, we can ride as a group together in the Watermelon Festival Monday.
What time?
I think it's around 10 usually, is it that morning?
I have a wedding that day for my son's.
Oh, good, it was probably in the morning then.
If it's in the morning, I'm good, as long as it's not an afternoon, not afternoon parade.
Maybe that'll be-
It's not an afternoon parade, they made it in the mornings,
June 7th?
June the 7th.
June 7th.
So let's go ahead and just put it in our plan, if y'all don't mind, we'll remember.
I think that's a
what we're
great idea, Paige.
Thank you very much.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Mr. Kerr.
Yeah, I've had recently 2 occasions to visit our Care Center and came away with some observations and 2 different prescriptions. You know how much it cost me?
0.
He called you, he's
Not
not, you're
not one penny that it cost me, so I would encourage y'all to, yourself, if you have any reasons to, visit over there, and also to anyone you come in contact with that we provide the insurance for to, related to them. That, they can go there, get either checked out or have a diagnosis, and as long as it's not obviously something that they've got to refer you on to a specialist, they'll do it right there, it won't cost you anything, and it won't cost you anything for medication that they have. Or if you remember, if you do visit another doctor, they write a prescription. Am I interrupting anybody? Okay, I don't want to interrupt anybody else's conversation, but that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kerr, thank you very much.
Pretending to be you and Philpott.
Not when other people are talking though.
All right, let's move on. Is the FCAT going all right?
We had a hiccup or 2, but it's moving right along. We're doing pretty good this week, I think.
As I already said, the Indians play the Devil tonight, at 7 o'clock. Welcome you to come over if you'd like to see the Indians get beat.
Are they playing that here?
Those are paying work.
Are they in the same district, Mr. Philpott?
Sir?
Are they in the same district?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
They are. The Indians beat Cross City last night rather handily. Excuse me, Dixie County.
I know Bronson plays Thursday night for Franklin Sports Washington. I don't know who they play.
In print.
And our FFA ski shoot's coming up in May. It's a Saturday before Mother's Day. So you want to shoot and kill something, a ski, come over. We got something you can shoot at. Or you have to kill.
Right.
Sir?
The skeet's a little hard to clean over there.
They're more hard to cook, but
Okay.
they don't fry too well. Anybody else got any comment? Thank you, Mr. Attorney.